Cold night, mother cat, kitten. Under a rusted old car in a quiet alleyway, a small tabby cat crouched low, her breathing rapid and shallow. Dust-matted fur, but golden eyes held strength. A mother. World kept spinning, her pain ignored. Groaning, she strained, hiding pain. But a faint mewl broke through the storm. Tiny gray kitten, mama's last breath. He trembled, slick and fragile, mewling softly. She leaned forward exhausted and began licking him clean. Her tongue moved with purpose, treating him, warming him, waking his tiny breath. She named him silently in her heart, though she had no words, no language like humans. To her, he was everything. With her body curled tightly around him, she shielded him from the rain. The space under the car was damp, but it was the safest shelter she could find. As water trickled down from the chassis, she pressed her baby against her chest, sharing what little warmth she had left. The kitten whimpered and suckled weakly. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, but she offered her milk anyway, praying it would be enough. Outside, the storm raged on. But under that car, in that hidden corner of the world, a bond had been formed stronger than hunger, stronger than fear. The mama cat didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, she had a reason to survive. She didn't know if she'd find food tomorrow. She didn't know if she'd be chased, or cold, or sick again. But she did know one thing. She would do whatever it took to keep this tiny life alive. And so began a journey not of a wild animal but of a mother. Morning light filtered through the cracks in the alley walls, turning puddles into tiny mirrors. The storm had passed, but its cold breath still lingered in the air. Under the same rusted car, the mama cat stretched cautiously, her bones aching, her belly hollow. She peered down at her kitten still curled and blind, his body rising and falling with soft, trusting breaths. It was time to hunt. She gently nudged him with her nose, ensuring he was tucked into the driest corner. Then, with one last lick across his forehead, she slipped into the street, staying low and quiet. The world was dangerous for a cat like her. Humans passed with busy feet, some stepping too close, others shouting to shoo her away. She dodged cars, crossed roads cautiously, and sniffed at trash bins, her nose guiding her to the faintest trace of food. Sometimes she found scraps, a piece of bread, a bite of meat, a soft part of fruit. She never ate first. No matter how her ribs pressed against her skin, no matter how her mouth watered, she always carried something back to the nest, chewing it smaller, softening it, pushing it toward her kitten's mouth when he began to nibble. Days passed this way. She learned which bakery tossed leftovers, which shopkeeper threw stones. She memorized the hours of danger and the quiet moments when she could move safely. She fought off crows, avoided dogs, and limped when her paw was injured jumping a fence. Once, she was caught in a net and dragged by a boy who laughed as she hissed and scratched. She escaped, barely, but returned to her kitten with blood on her shoulder and eyes filled with pain. Still, she didn't stop. Every night, she wrapped her body around him. He was bigger now, more curious, trying to crawl. She purred softly, a lullaby of love, while he suckled and slept. Her fur grew patchy, her movements stiff, but her eyes never lost focus. Other cats came and went. Some stared, some stole, but she remained silent, determined, fierce. She was a warrior, not with claws but with heart. And though no one saw her, no one applauded her sacrifice, her kitten felt it. Even if he didn't yet understand, something in his tiny body knew she was his world, and she was giving everything she had, every breath, every step, to keep his world alive. Weeks turned into months, and the frail kitten once hidden beneath the car had become stronger, steadier on his feet. His eyes, once shut tightly against the world, were now wide and curious. He followed the flicker of light, chased leaves across the pavement, and pounced on shadows with clumsy delight. But he never wandered far. Mama was always nearby watching. Her body had grown thinner, but her spirit had not. She taught through action. When she crouched before a scrap of food, her son mimicked her. When she leapt to avoid a barking dog, he followed. When she paused and listened to the world, so did he. Each day he learned something new: how to balance on a narrow wall, how to sniff the air for danger, how to recognize the sound of a kind human's footsteps, and how to flee from a cruel one. But above all, he learned the silent language of love. His mama rarely meowed. She didn't need to. Her tail wrapped around him when he trembled. Her body curled to shield him from wind. Her eyes blinked slowly, lovingly, when he looked at her. That blink meant safety. It meant home. Sometimes he brought her things: dead leaves, a tiny bug, a shiny candy wrapper. She would sniff them and purr, not because she needed them, but because she understood. Her kitten was growing and trying, and he wanted to give back, even if he didn't know how yet. One day, she limped more than usual. Her back leg, already weakened from an old injury, shook with each step. She sat down to rest sooner than normal, and the kitten noticed. He nudged her face, confused. She licked his head and purred, as always. But something in her eyes had changed, like a candle flickering too early in the evening. The kitten curled up next to her and didn't play that day. He stayed close, watched everything, and for the first time, worried. That night, he didn't sleep. He listened to her breathing, shallow and tired. He rested his paw on hers, feeling the same warmth that had kept him alive as a baby. She had been his protector, his teacher, his world. And though he didn't yet have the words, something deep in his small, growing heart whispered a promise. One day, I'll protect you too. The morning was quiet. A warm breeze stirred the trash bins and tugged gently at the torn tarpaulin where the mama cat and her son had slept. The kitten had grown lean and fast, his gray coat now sleek and silver in the sun. He moved with curiosity and confidence, though he always looked back to make sure Mama was near. That day, they had wandered farther than usual. The smell of fried food from a street stall had lured them toward a busy road. The mama cat hesitated, her instincts sharp despite her aging body, but the kitten was eager. He darted across quickly, his paws barely touching the ground. Mama followed. She didn't run like she used to. Her back leg dragged slightly behind her, slowing her down. She reached the center of the road when it happened. A sudden honk, screeching tires, a blur of red. The car didn't stop. The kitten turned just in time to see her hit. Not thrown far, not torn apart, but clipped. Enough to make her stumble and crumple to the asphalt. The world froze. He ran to her, heart pounding, a terrified mew escaping his throat. She lay still for a moment, her eyes wide with pain and confusion. Then, with effort, she raised her head. The cars kept moving. Horns shouted, feet walked past. No one noticed the old cat and her crying son in the gutter. The kitten nudged her, licked her face, meowed again and again. Finally, she responded with a slow blink, a promise, I'm still here. He stayed beside her until the street quieted. When he was sure it was safe, he tugged gently at her fur, coaxing her toward the curb. Inch by inch, she dragged herself into the alley. She didn't cry, she didn't whimper, but the pain was clear in her every step. From that day on, she no longer hunted. She didn't climb, or chase, or leap. Her body betrayed her. She lay for hours in the shadows, only moving to drink water or shift her aching limbs. Her once bright eyes dulled with exhaustion, but the kitten he was no longer helpless. He brought her scraps of food, soft things to rest on, even a crumpled plastic bag he pushed under her side like a pillow. He cleaned her fur, curled beside her at night, and stood between her and every stranger who walked too close. Mama had given him life. Now, it was his turn to give her peace. The kitten, though no longer a kitten, really had grown into a slim, graceful young cat. His muscles were lean, his coat smooth, but in his eyes was something deeper than youth. It was awareness, maturity, a quiet strength born not from games or chasing butterflies, but from watching his mother suffer and survive. Each morning, he woke before the sun and slipped into the city's quieter corners. He had learned her routes: the safe alleys, the bakery that dropped bread early, the fish shop that left bones near the back gate. He prowled silently, quickly, and always returned with something to share. When he brought her food, he laid it gently at her paws and sat beside her. Sometimes she would nibble. Other times, she simply blinked slowly at him in gratitude. Her body was weaker now, but her heart still beat strong and her pride had not disappeared. He never pushed her. He simply stayed. At night, he cleaned her fur carefully, working around the sore spots. He remembered how she had once licked his ears clean while he wriggled and squeaked. Now it was his turn. He did it with care and love. She didn't speak, but her silence was full of meaning. Every breath they shared under the stars was a conversation. Every warm curl of her tail around his paws was a thank you. One evening, a larger stray approached, muscular, aggressive, and hungry. The young cat stood between the stranger and his mother, his tail puffed, his ears pinned back. He didn't back down. His claws flashed and his voice rose in a growl far deeper than his age would suggest. The bigger cat left. Mama, watching from her corner, blinked once. Her son had become her protector. He didn't leave her side for long. When he did go hunting, he never strayed far. He brought back not just food, but found things. Feathers, paper, once even a broken doll's leg that he thought looked funny. She sniffed each one with amusement. There were days when she didn't move at all. He curled beside her, heart heavy, his body warm against hers. She had once carried him in her teeth to safety. Now he nudged her to shade when the sun was too harsh, shielded her from the rain with his body, and slept lightly, ready to wake at any sound. He didn't do it because he had to. He did it because love doesn't forget. The seasons shifted once again. The air turned cool and soft, and the city's noises grew gentler under the golden glow of late afternoons. The young cat who had once nuzzled blindly beneath his mother's belly now moved through the world with confidence and calm, but he never moved without her. The alley had become their home, tucked behind a quiet bookstore where the owner sometimes left out scraps of food and a bowl of water. It was not a palace. It was not perfect, but it was safe. And for the aging mama cat, that was everything. She no longer tried to chase shadows or watch birds fluttering overhead. Her eyes were still bright, but they blinked slower now. She spent her days curled beside a stack of worn boxes, breathing in the warm sun, purring softly whenever her son returned.